So Fire Emblem Heroes has officially been active for about a year now, and it has raked in $295 million in revenue in that time. Today, I want to talk about what that means for Nintendo and just have a discussion around what this means for their future in the mobile market. So this comes off of some analytic reports showing that Fire Emblem has done so much better than everything else that Nintendo has done on the mobile platform. Of course, an omission here is Pokemon Go, but that is not developed by Nintendo, though they do see some of the kickback from those sales. Fire Emblem has done much better than Super Mario Run, the first quote-unquote game that they released for the smartphone market, discluding Miitomo, which is actually being shut down in a few months here. Super Mario Run, the long-awaited, investor-requested debut of Mario on smartphones, didn't do as well as people would have thought, only generating approximately $60 million since its December 2016 launch. And the biggest reason for this is the difference in monetization style. You've got Super Mario Run doing the good guy Nintendo thing of just coming up with a fair price and charging that fair price for the entire product. Fire Emblem Heroes, on the other hand, you can spend a bottomless amount of money and never get the characters that you want, and they're constantly adding new characters to the app. And Fire Emblem also, I would say, translates much better to the smartphone. You know, Mario isn't best enjoyed on the smartphone, it's just a version of Mario that I also find enjoyable. Fire Emblem, on the other hand, having these bite-sized battles along with the deep metagame that's attached with it, trying to get different heroes and combine their skills and weapons to create the best team that jives well together, and even going on to create multiple teams for different situations. The game is constantly being updated, along with the other things that are happening in the Fire Emblem franchise. For instance, they did special maps from Fire Emblem Warriors to celebrate the recent DLC release, and they'll usually do promotional runs with all of the new Fire Emblem games as well. I remember back when the 3DS version of Fire Emblem Gaiden was coming out, they released all the characters in chunks there to, in one sense, create some new content for Heroes, but also to promote the release of that new game. And I think that is the best example of the sort of synergy that Nintendo would like to see from their mobile endeavors. Having the Fire Emblem game produce enough profit on its own to be a highly successful, critically acclaimed, just won a DICE award the other day, mobile release, but also prop up the Fire Emblem franchise, bring some new eyes to new releases and new things that are happening within that franchise. You couple that with the success of the Switch, and I think mobile is going to continue to be a nice pillar for them in that fashion. Animal Crossing hasn't had the same sort of success. It's made approximately $20 million since its release, and I don't think the Animal Crossing model is translating as well to phones, which sounds crazy to say out loud. I mean, that's a game about coming back frequently, making little check-ins, doing little chores here and there, but I think the way that they tried to make it smaller than the original games ended up just shooting itself in the foot. Fire Emblem Heroes manages to do something that Animal Crossing on the smartphone doesn't, which is adapt a formula that is typically on larger scale console and handheld releases and actually make it compelling for the smartphone instead of just a watered down version of the original product. While Fire Emblem Heroes certainly doesn't have as complex a battle system as some of the mainline releases, what you have in place of that is the presence of all of these different characters that you know and love, even the obscure ones from Fire Emblem games dating back to the original release of the series. It's something different and something special in relation to the series that it has, whereas Animal Crossing, I feel like, has a interesting concept that they're working with, you being at this campsite, and that naturally perpetuates this smaller scale that they're trying to sell you, but at the same time, it falls into this trap of being too much like a mobile game. It feels like it's a mobile game with Animal Crossing paint rather than Animal Crossing adapted to work well on a mobile device. And I don't know if that distinction that I'm trying to make there is very clear, but I think you'll get that feeling too the more that you play it. every time you start building furniture, there's timers. Every time you shake a tree, there's timers, and all of these little nagging qualities that the mobile industry has really propped up as the way to do business. And it sure has been a great source of revenue for a lot of these guys, but I think also people are getting more and more burned to how predatory they are. Fire Emblem Heroes is no better on the monetization portion of things. I think it's kind of sickening that they will shop characters to you. You'll see your favorite character in a new skin or a new weapon, and you go to the summoning place to try and grab him. You got 100 orbs in hand. You're like trying to grab him, but you check out the appearance rates, and there's only a 3.25% chance that you're going to nab that character you were looking for. And this is for just one character out of the 3 or 4 that they'll feature in this particular banner for 15 days until they move on to another group of characters that you also want someone from. I think it's very similar to gambling, too similar to gambling, and I think we're going to start to see more regulation happening in this whole loot box field, but that's my personal take on it. I don't know how anybody else feels about how Fire Emblem does it in particular, since it is a free game that you can totally play for free and it won't bother you. It's just you won't have the advantages that players who pay will. I think the other nice thing that Fire Emblem has going for it is momentum in that franchise. I think Animal Crossing was also supposed to have this sort of momentum with the Wii U and 3DS side releases that they did, the mini games and the Happy Home Designer. They did the Amiibo cards and the Amiibo figures. They were really trying to make that series a bigger thing, all while not releasing a mainline version of Animal Crossing. I was recently playing Fire Emblem Warriors on the Switch to experience the new DLC and the Season Pass, and that made me want to go back to Fire Emblem Heroes, which is also having its own little marketing pushes, its own new releases of content, and playing Fire Emblem Heroes kind of makes me want to play Fire Emblem Warriors more, and that sort of give and take is great for these sort of releases. It props up both of them to do really well. Animal Crossing is just sitting on the iPhone with a string of very average releases in its wake. If you go to any sort of Target or GameStop, you'll see plenty of overstock that they had for the Animal Crossing Amiibo figures that never quite caught on. And it seems like though Nintendo is doing a lot with Animal Crossing, not a whole lot of it is resonating with the audience. It's a shame. I really was looking forward to Animal Crossing on my phone. I check into it every once in a while, but it just doesn't capture me the same way that New Leaf did. With the newly announced Mario Kart Tour and the alleged Zelda game that's being worked on for mobile, it'll be interesting to see where Nintendo goes from here with their mobile offerings. I think one thing is for sure, we're probably not going to see a $10 app from them again anytime soon. And as someone who doesn't like bottomless pricing and predatory marketing, I'm a little disappointed by that. But I understand the business ramifications of not doing so. The ironic twist in all of this is that while investors were screaming at Nintendo and large fan bases were advising that they just start creating third-party games for other consoles, their biggest pillar of revenue and success, the hotness of 2017, was their home console. It's funny how things turn out. So that was a lot of jargon, a lot of stats, and a lot of hot takes. I'd love to know what you think of all this. Have you tried out Fire Emblem Heroes? Do you care about Nintendo's mobile offerings at all? Let me know in the comments below. Let's have a discussion. And if you like this sort of content, I would recommend that you subscribe to whatever platform you're listening to, as we do update this show Monday through Friday and aim for a posting time of 8 p.m. If you're playing the Balloon World DLC inside of Mario Odyssey, check out my episode from yesterday. I've linked some codes inside of the description box of that video and podcast, and I'd love for you to check out where I hid my balloons and let me know if you found them. So that will be it for this episode of Nintendo Nightly. I will see you on Monday.